Cassie from Vetfolio and the host of Vet2Vet. Parasite control and prevention is always a big topic in our clinics, and I know I could always use a refresher on all things parasite related. This is especially important because what we need to worry about and where and when we need to worry about it is constantly changing. Here to give us an expert recap on the latest parasiticides is Dr. Craig Pryor. He's a board member and past president of the Companion Animal Parasite Council. As a 38-year veteran of the veterinary industry, Dr. Pryor has very useful advice on all aspects of small animal medicine and surgery, as well as the operations and metrics of well-managed practices. Dr. Pryor, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're so happy to have you. So let's start out with a little bit of a somber reminder about parasiticides and compliance, particularly heartworm prevention in this case.
Okay, so firstly, I'll get to heartworm, but let's talk flea tick to start with. So average numbers, when you look at that, depending on what study you're looking at, use of flea tick products, about 2 to 4 months. Average usage of a heartworm-based product is about 4 to 6 months. The saddest bit of those figures is not the months usage, but the lack of usage. So 65 to 69% of all clients walk out the door of your clinic without buying anything. Not a flea tick product, not a heartworm product. So what do you think they do when they see a flea or tick? They go somewhere to buy something. They're just not buying it from us. So, I look at this as a wonderful opportunity. So if only 35, and we all think we do a great job. We think about our clients go, well, yeah, I'm making recommendations. I think I'm doing that. I think I'm getting a lot of clients to use it. Well, until you look at the numbers, and you have to look at your numbers. And so if only 35% of clients are buying from you, think of your opportunity. You can double your parasiticide sales tomorrow, and yet you still haven't sold to 100% of your clientele. But think of what that does to protect more pets and to protect more families, because ultimately we're trying to give a One Health message. We're not just trying to protect that pet, we're trying to protect the whole family. And that's one of the most important things we can do. So think of your opportunity.
Absolutely. It's really scary to think about our patients not being covered and then all of the One Health impacts that can have. It's funny that we're talking about this today. I just had an experience yesterday where I had a pet come in and I asked, okay, what are we on for flea, tick, heartworm? And he said, I don't know. My wife does that, but definitely on something. And I said, okay. And then I found a Lone Star tick embedded in the back leg of this pup. And I said, okay, well, whatever we're on, I think it's time for another dose. And we did end up sending that person out the door with a dose of preventative. It was a growing puppy, so we only did 1 dose. So we didn't, miss the weight class next month. But it's like I said, it's funny we're having this conversation today because just yesterday, I feel like I had the perfect example of that.
Right. And, the other thing is we know what they've been buying from us, but we don't know what they're not buying from us. They're buying elsewhere. So I think it's important to change the way we talk to clients and ask questions from the clients. And so what I do is I ask the client, what are you currently using? And when did you last give or apply it? And you're going to get all kinds of interesting answers. That client that goes, well, I buy that, generic from whatever big box store you want to talk about. And you suddenly go, okay, well, we need to have a further conversation because you realize that they're using a product that doesn't really cover for anything, that really doesn't do a good job. And you're looking, it gives you an opportunity to engage and change behavior and educate. And that's what I'm always looking for.
Moving on to a different class of parasites, one that I know I've battled with throughout my career here in Florida, and that's intestinal parasites. In my experience, hookworms have been particularly hard to clear in some of my patients. Is that just me, or are we seeing changes in intestinal parasite numbers or response to treatment?
Yeah, so let's talk about them just generally, and then we'll hone in on hookworms in just a couple of minutes. So if you look at CAPC data, and there's actually Dr. Jason Drake, he's a veterinarian parasitologist, boarded parasitologist. He wrote a paper a couple of years ago where he scraped data off the CAPC maps, and we've got really good preventives. And these preventives are broad spectrum. And you look at a lot of the heartworm-based products, they'll do intestinal parasites as well, depending on which one you're using, which intestinal parasites they get. But Dr. Jason Drake scraped this data, and he did it for over 7 years and 39 million samples he looked at. And he found that we're getting a increased prevalence in hookworms, increased prevalence in roundworms, a slight decrease in whipworms. But for the main two zoonotics, hookworms and roundworms, we're seeing increasing prevalence over time. So it shows you that we're just not doing a great job getting the message out to clients and getting that compliance back up. The other thing he found out of the data is that there's true seasonality now. So we now know that roundworms tend to peak in December, January, the winter months. Whipworms peak in January, February, the winter months, and hookworms would peak in summer months. So now we can have a different conversation with our clients. And I'm going to segue here a little bit, but we tend to call these broad spectrum monthly parasiticides heartworm products. They're not heartworms, they're broad spectrum monthly parasiticides that prevent against heartworms, intestinal parasites, and whatever else they do. Let's give them the value that they deserve, and let's change that conversation, because a client may stop using a heartworm-based product in the winter months because they don't see the threat there. But we've got intestinal parasites that peak in the winter months, two of them, roundworms and whipworms. And when you look at the seasonality of all these intestinal parasites, we've got a really good case for year-round prevention, because intestinal parasites are a year-round problem. All these dogs are going to dog parks, and there's a lot of the issue right there, right? So there was, the dog park study, again, Jason Drake did it. He did this study on dog parks, went out and collected over 3,000 stool samples in 30 different cities from, I think it was 288 dog parks. And what they found was that 1 in 5 dogs were positive for intestinal parasites. In fact, 85% of dog parks were positive for intestinal parasites. Dog parks, to me, are equal opportunity infectors. They're just nasty. Emilio DeBez, who's the public health veterinarian for the state of Oregon, he lives in Portland. And Portland, Oregon is the most dog-friendly city in the United States. That's well known. And they've got dog parks everywhere. He went out and did a dog park study in Portland, Oregon, and he found that 50% of all samples he picked up were positive for Giardia.
Oh my gosh, 50%.
Yeah, just nasty. Yeah, right. And the original dog park study I just mentioned that Jason Drake did, they actually looked at the average age of dogs, because you immediately go, well, most of these dogs are probably going to be puppies, right? Average age of dogs were 2 years of age in that study.
Goodness.
So, yeah.
Eye-opening. So
yes.
Data I would really prefer to stay in denial about, but we really can't, given what we're seeing with all of these studies. I know there's several studies out there, and they all seem to come to a very similar conclusion about intestinal parasites.
Right. Protect your pet. And, when it comes down to it, hookworms, roundworms being zoonotic, protecting your pet is protecting your family from zoonotic disease. And that's so important. And then, so, let's talk about your situation with hookworms. I mean, hookworms are, so I think one of the big things we tend to forget when we're dealing with a hookworm situation. And so first thing I'll say is, think of the pre-patent period, 10 to 14 days pre-patent period. So you can have a dog that's positive for hookworms today, and it receives its heartworm-based monthly broad-spectrum parasiticide tomorrow that actually will treat for hookworms and roundworms, and you eliminate the hookworms. If you got a 10 to 14 day pre-patent period and that dog is exposed the next day to a contaminated environment where they're going to come in contact with a hookworm egg with a viable larva in it, then that dog, that hookworm egg will then go through the larval stage, et cetera, in 10 to 14 days, it's going to be an adult worm again, laying eggs, and that dog can be positive before the next dose of heartworm-based product. And so we tend to forget that. So, 1 month you get a positive hookworm and they give the preventive, and the next month they're positive again and go, oh, we may have resistance. No, we don't have resistance. We can't jump on that bandwagon that fast. Think about the pre-patent period. Think about what's going on. Environmental contamination. Is this dog going to daycare, dog parks, boarding, grooming, anything like that, where it can come in contact with a nasty environment? And then, are we scooping the poop? So if you got intestinal parasites it doesn't matter if you've got intestinal parasites or not, scoop the poop, but you should be scooping the poop at least once a week, preferably daily, out of your own backyard. If a dog's positive for hookworms, the dog should be bathed, because you can get contamination of the fur.
Mhm.
And there's reinfection as well. And then after that, if you've done everything and you're doing the right thing, then yes, we do have hookworm resistance. It is real. It is in the United States. So came out of first noticed in greyhounds in Florida. Greyhound industry is shut down. Greyhounds are being adopted out all over the country. And now we're seeing it show up in the general dog population as well. Yeah, parasites are
Yeah.
dynamic and ever changing. They're on the move, and it's something that we have to be aware of and know that they're always adaptable, and they're going to adapt, and they're going to try and stay ahead of us.
And so kind of along those lines, what can we expect in the future when it comes to parasite number, distribution, resistance, all of those factors?
Because of compliance issues, I think we're always going to have problems, and we've always got the potential for resistance, because when you don't give a product consistently as given to keep therapeutic levels, you get sublethal doses. Sublethal dosing will select for resistance. We've seen that in the heartworm world with the macrocytic lactones. We're seeing it now with hookworms. We have the potential really in any type of thing. I mean, we see it with antibacterials as well. So it's there, and it's something that we just have to keep on plugging away and trying to reinforce compliance.
Absolutely. I know that's one of those where, you have a dog who comes up positive for one of these infections or infestations, and you're going, gosh, like it just feels so unnecessary.
Right. And it's all about, how we communicate and get the message across, and then using tools. And we've got great tools available to us now. Smartphones are a game changer. I have clients that you give them a product, and you tell them that it's got to be given monthly, and they're like, oh, I don't know if I can remember to do, or you do an extended duration, and I don't know if I can remember to do that. I just say to them, well, let me have your phone. And everyone's carrying one of these things. And I just pick up their phone and go, hey, Siri, put a reminder in for Buffy to give the heartworm-based preventive every month. And Siri goes, I will do that. And the client goes, oh, I never thought about that. Right? We can do text reminders. There's tools we've got just to keep on tapping away at this, chipping away at it, trying to help these clients to be more compliant and protect more pets.
Gosh, I hope that we can, and we can continue to be more successful with this, because it's always scary anytime we have one of these talks about parasites.
Right. Yep, exactly.
And of course, everything we're talking about here is important for our patients. But one thing as a mother of 2 young kids that I really don't like to think about is the zoonotic potential, particularly when it comes to intestinal parasites. This is part of remembering that we're a part of this One Health initiative.
Right. Yes. And, we deal with zoonotic diseases. I mean, zoonotic parasites, hookworms and roundworms. And, roundworms, causes ocular larval migrants. There's, I think it's, a couple hundred cases every year in the US of this. And, hookworm zoonosis, where you get cutaneous larval migrants. And that's, where, yes, it's the human profession is not talking about it. We have to.
Sure.
And, I've had pediatricians come into my practice with their animals, and I've said to them, oh, how much you know about zoonosis? They go, Zoa, what? And you're like, oh my goodness, so it behooves us to be really reinforcing it. And, the other thing is just reminding parents, there's a reason that children should wear shoes outside. There's a reason they should wash their hands before they eat. You just have to reinforce that. I mean, there was another study done where they looked at parasitic contamination of common areas. And in this study, it was done worldwide. And in the US, they chose Connecticut to do the testing. And it wasn't a dog park study. They took soil samples from common areas, which were like greenways, bike paths, beaches, playgrounds, things like that. Almost 15% of all soil samples were contaminated with parasitic elements, a lot of them zoonotic. And it's just out there. It's just
Right.
It's a nasty world we live in. No matter which way you look at it,
Anytime we talk about parasites, I'm always like, I could just live in denial about this for the rest of my life and be perfectly happy.
Exactly. Curl your toes.
Yes, but unfortunately, it is a reality of the world we live in. And one of the reasons that I do always wear shoes when I go outside.
Right.
What are some of the other changes we've seen in parasites in terms of species, distribution, treatment?
So we're just seeing movement of parasites. So parasites, really the best way of saying it, they're dynamic and ever changing. They're on the move. And so CAPC, Companion Animal Parasite Council, we actually do forecasts. So we've been forecasting parasite prevalence and disease for about 8 years now. When we do this, we actually work with statisticians from major universities in the United States, and these professors are scary smart, and they use these really, really complicated formulas. And we have so many millions of data points now that we have found that we can actually now forecast parasites and parasitic diseases on the county level. Our forecasts, we've got 8 published papers now, minimum fidelity 94%, so 94 to 99% accuracy. So Lyme is slowly oozing down from the northeast, so is Anaplasma. Ehrlichiosis is slowly moving out from the south and just moving up the east coast. And then heartworm is showing up in places we haven't seen it before. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. So talking about heartworm, we're seeing heartworms show up in Colorado and New Mexico. And that's interesting. So a lot of what's going on is the movement of animals after natural disasters, hurricanes, things like that, and just relocation of shelter animals. There's a lot of areas of the country where there's a shortage of animals. And so they get scooped up out of these shelters and rescues and moved around the country. And if you look at the data, there's actually data published on Colorado itself that showed from 2014 through 2017, there was around 30,000 animals moved into the Denver metro area every year. And we saw the prevalence of heartworm in those areas double in some counties and almost double in all the other counties. And the reason for that is that most of them are rescues, and less than 1/3 of rescues test, treat, or put animals on prevention before they relocate these animals. So what happens, you think about this. You have a dog that's heartworm positive, it's antigen positive, microfilaria positive. It's a rescue, it gets moved and it gets adopted out, somewhere like, let's say, Denver. And what do they do when they adopt it out? They say, hey, go see your veterinarian. So when do they come see you? Is it in 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, next year? We don't know. But in the meantime, that dog sits in someone's backyard. That dog is now a source of infection or exposure for every dog in its neighborhood within the range of the mosquito. And there's over 20 different species of mosquitoes that can spread heartworm between dogs and cats. And the average range of a mosquito is anywhere from 150 yards to 1.5 miles. We have to think differently. And I'll add to that one other thing. CDC says that we get about 1 million dogs imported in the US every year. Now, when dogs are imported in the US, there's only one burden of proof, and that's a current rabies vaccine and a rabies certificate. And we ran into problems this year, earlier on the year. They actually, CDC banned, or USDA banned import from, I think it was 113 different countries because there was falsification of rabies vaccines. And then we had a case of rabies in a dog came in. But that only decreased the importations by 6%. And that still puts it at over 1 million dogs coming into the US this year. And that, if the only burden of proof is that they got a rabies vaccine, what else is coming in? So we have to think differently. We can't go upon historical norms. You think about what we've always done, which is what we always do for our area. Whatever the recommendation is for your area, whether you be in the Northwest, the Northeast, the South, Mid-Central, doesn't matter. Throw that out. We just need to, we cannot base our recommendations on historical norms. It should be every pet tested, every pet protected. Full stop.
Absolutely. I get, maybe that's one advantage to living in Florida is we have all the parasites. So I'm like, of course you have to protect them all. We have everything. They have to be on everything all the time, year round.
Right. And think about movement of animals now, right? Not just movement of rescues, but we are a mobile society, and COVID accelerated that. Okay.
Right.
Companies sent everybody home and said, go work from home. And now that we're coming out of COVID, companies are saying, oh, you can work wherever you want to. We don't have to come back to the office. I know multiple people now that have said, hey, this is great. I can work from anywhere. I'm going to go travel the US, and they're living in different parts of the US, and they're spending 3 months here, 3 months there, 3 months somewhere else, and their animals are with them all the time. So that's the other thing we need to be doing with our client base is when we're taking histories, we need to be asking what their travel history was and what their future travel history is going to be. Where do you intend to vacation this year? Oh, I'm in Tennessee. I have clients that say, well, I'm going to go to North Carolina for the summer. Okay, then let's bring up CAPC maps. Let's bring up North Carolina and see which parasites are a threat for you there and which vector-borne diseases you may come in contact with, because I need to work out how best to protect your pet.
Another thing I think is important to remember is that the responsibility doesn't need to fall solely on the shoulders of the practitioners. Good medicine, it's a team sport, and it's important for everyone to participate in educating clients about the importance of parasite prevention.
Right, I agree. So it's my mantra. It's what I've always, done in my clinic was I call it one voice, one message. Everyone in the clinic needs to be on the same page, and it needs to start at the top. So, clinic owner, medical director, a group of doctors need to come up with what their standards are, need to be written, and then it needs to be disseminated down. And so, it's one voice, one message, whether it be a inventory item, a recommendation, a service, a product, that everyone's on the same page. And so the clients hear a common voice, and that doesn't lead to confusion. And along with that needs to be that we don't have 50,000 products on the shelf, right? In my practice, I had one heartworm preventive, heartworm-based preventive. My flea tick portfolio, I carried one oral, one collar, and one topical, because I wanted to cover the market. I want clients to walk out the door with something and not nothing. And yes, orals are the #1 products in the veterinary channel, but topicals are the #1 product in the OTC channel. So I'm going to carry what I consider best in class, most cost effective, or both. And I'm going to carry just one of each. And my staff loved me for it because I made their job easy. They understood the products. They understood how to talk about the products. They understood how to recommend the products. There was no confusion, and we made recommendations. We told the clients what we thought they should be doing. I like leading questions that lead to direct product recommendations or service recommendations. Okay. One of the best I came up with was I've told all my staff to ask ask the client, what is your tolerance for fleas and ticks? And, I saw it in action one day. I had a high school kid that was working as a kennel assistant part-time. He was bringing an animal up from grooming, handing it off to the owner, and the owner just made an offhanded comment. She said, I've been having a really hard problem with a hard time with fleas this year. He turned to her and said, well, what's your tolerance for fleas and ticks? And she said, oh, gross, none. He goes, we recommend, okay, put in whatever product you want, product X. We recommend product X. Let me take you up to the receptionist. They're going to get you some and teach you how to use it. She walked out with a year's supply. Job well done, right? That's what we want to get to.
I love that. That's such a good reminder, good encouraging thought to have, to say, it's hope is not lost. There's plenty that we can do to make things easy for clients and keep things in house.
Right. And then be vigilant. Be vigilant. Parasites are dynamic and ever changing. We've got the Asian longhorn tick in the United States now, right? So I think that, things that I want us all to remember is that we've got new parasites showing up. Asian longhorn tick is now in 17 states. This tick exhibits parthenogenesis, which is an asexual form of reproduction. This tick does not need a man. She just reproduces by herself. This tick's habitat, it really likes to live anywhere. So there is a paper out there that shows, I think it's a geospatial, where they think the habitat's going to be. And I've heard some parasitologists say, throw that paper away, because the map just sort of shows some splotches of red on the US. It said, just paint the whole map red. It's going to live anywhere, right? So it's here. It's in 17 states. It's moving. It even likes short grass. It'll really live anywhere, but it's that really nasty tick. In cattle, it'll get a couple 100,000 ticks on one cow and basically exsanguinates them. It sucks them dry. It's a nasty tick.
A cow?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Right. Trouble is we've got better and better products on the market now, and our conversations have gotten shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. And we're having soundbite conversations now. Here, give them this chewy chunk of say it'll solve your problem. We need to talk about other things. I've got limited amount of time. I've got other patients to see. No, clients are interested in parasites. Clients are concerned about parasites. And if you engage them, they will follow your recommendations and they will come in to talk to you about them. We need to be having the conversations.
Absolutely. I think that's a great reminder. And Dr. Pryor, despite the fact that talking about parasites can be a little bit harrowing, I think this conversation was hugely eye-opening and full of just great information, good reminders, and kind of that good push to make sure we're making good recommendations and connecting with our clients. So thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. Glad to be here. It's been fun.
And thank you to Merck Animal Health for sponsoring this edition of Vet2Vet. Check out the Spark section of vetfolio.com for more of our V2V discussions on various topics in veterinary medicine. And remember, if one animal is better off because of you today, it's a great day.